All right, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. Blake Testa, and I'm just doing a short video and exercise routine to address pelvic tilt issues. Predominantly, this conversation can be geared towards anterior pelvic tilt specifically. So to kind of get comfortable with what all these terms mean, we're just going to do a little bit of an anatomy review about what our pelvis is made up of and its relationship to not only the lumbar spine, the lower back, as well as our lower extremity. So the pelvis itself is a complex made up of 3 bones. We have the 2 hip bones on either side. We're pretty familiar with those. And we have the sacrum right in the middle. So those 3 bones make a ring, and that's really to help transmit stability and movement between our upper torso and our lower legs. So really important for weight bearing, but also really important because it kind of governs movement between all these things. If you're doing anything active, whether it's weightlifting, running, or just sitting at your computer, the relationship of your pelvis to the rest of the spine is really important. So just kind of get familiar with the moving pieces. I'm going to have you put a hand on the front and the back of your pelvis. Think about the lower abdomen and kind of around the tailbone. If we think about anterior pelvic tilt, anterior just means forward over the body. So anterior pelvic tilt means that our pelvis is rocking in that forward direction. Posterior pelvic tilt is a fancy term for backward. So if you think about rocking the hips back, that's posterior and anterior. So if we do this standing, that's even a better representation. So we can see the effects that it has on the rest of the body. Anterior pelvic tilt, again, forward, kind of puts the lumbar spine into a hyper arch, a little bit too much curvature down there, as well as extends and sort of over protrudes the lower abdomen. Again, posterior pelvic tilt is the exact opposite. We're sort of tucking the tailbone down, lifting the pubic bone up, a little bit more of a sound position. This naturally gets our gluteals and our core to activate, which is going to be a big theme for our corrective work. I want to rewind a little bit and just first give a disclaimer. Everyone's got different anatomy, and there's a lot of variation amongst us humans as to what is normal. There's definitely no normal amount of pelvic tilt. Everyone's got a little bit of different structure in our bodies. And it's very reasonable to have great function depending on whatever your structure is. What we can make improvements on is the function of those pieces altogether. And that's going to really be geared towards muscle activation and correcting movement patterns, okay? Now, the easiest thing to pick on with anterior pelvic tilt is sitting. When we sit for long periods, a lot of people are dealing with this right now with working at home. What happens naturally is the hip flexors in the front of our body right here, these are the muscles that attach your femur to your pelvis. They tend to get short and tight. They get used to this shortened position. And when we go to stand, the tension there drives us into that anterior pelvic tilt. Again, at a baseline, this might not be a big deal, but if you then go to lift a big pile of like wet leaves, for example, we're doing a lot of yard work at our house right now, and you're dealing with an anterior pelvic tilt, creating a lot of torsion in that shape can cause a lot of problems. So kind of keeping these things in mind as we go through class today. Nothing is perfect, but try to cue into these actions I'm giving you. The biggest theme we're going to be working on is core activation, gluteal activation. We're going to do a little bit of stretching on our hip flexors, but understand this is not something that we typically want to. We've got a late arrival here. All right. This is something that we're not going to stretch this sort of dysfunction away. Sorry, let me just, that should work. We're not going to really be stretching away our anterior pelvic tilt, but we're going to be activating out of it, okay? So while we're sitting, this is something you can do every day when you're at your desk. I want you to think about almost doing a little bit of a cat-cow motion. We're all pretty familiar with that. So maybe hands on your knees or those pelvic cues like we mentioned earlier. Think about a cat pose. We're going to round into the upper back, drop the chest down towards the floor, and do the exact opposite where we arch the back, lifting the chest. And again, we're sort of dumping into that anterior pelvic tilt here. Right between those 2 motions, we're going to try to find a neutral spine. Neutral spine is different for everyone, but it should be pretty in between those maximum curvatures. Do a few more reps like that. Think about a full cat pose and a full cow. Back and forth. Pay attention to what your sit bones are doing. Those are the bony parts of your butt back here. You should feel a little more pronounced when you rock back. Thinking cat pose and back up. Somewhere in the middle of that range, I want you to kind of keep it right there. Your spine is pretty neutral. We're going to squeeze our butt muscles, clench your glute muscles, and it's going to feel like it's going to lift you up out of your seat just a little bit. It's going to be a big theme, gluteal activation. Now, I'm going to have you do a little bit of movement with your arms, but we're going to try to keep our spine and pelvis in that exact shape, neutral spine. We're not going to get into that overarch going on here. So from your neutral spine position, contract your butt muscles, clench your cheeks, take your arms in front of you, and raise up in the overhead direction. Pretty simple motion, but I'm going to have you cue into what your front ribs are doing here. Bring your hands back to your hips, take a deep breath. And as you exhale, reach them up again overhead, trying not to flare your ribs forward. The natural tendency, if we reach overhead, especially in yoga sometimes, is we get into this hyper arch and rib flare. So again, to reduce that, we're going to start neutral spine, contract your butt, lift your hands overhead. We're going to keep those ribs glued in, and that might mean that your arms aren't going to reach as far overhead, and that's okay. Do 1 or 2 more of those raises. Deep breath in to initiate, lift up. Keep those ribs glued down. When you do that, you naturally should feel some activity in your abdominal muscles here. Good. Keep the arms up. Keep those ribs knitted up in the front. We're going to slowly turn the trunk to the left. We're trying to contract our abdominal muscles, these obliques right here, to keep those ribs from flaring out. So if you feel like your back is arching too much, come out of that shape. Bring that sternum towards your pubic bone. We're in that left rotated position. Slowly rotate to the right now. Same thing, you're not going to go very far if you're doing this movement correctly. So a couple little turns each way. And again, keep those butt muscles contracted. Your glutes are squeezing, like you're lifting yourself out of your seat. Deep breath in, come back to center, and bring your hands back down. That's just a little bit to get our sort of pelvis woken up. We're going to do another little series like that, kneeling position now. So I hope y'all have a yoga mat nearby. We're going to come down to a kneeling posture. What we're going to do is start, I'm going to instruct this with my right knee down and my left leg forward. And we're going to just draw a little awareness to where our neutral spine is. So if you need to, put a hand on the front and back. And again, walk yourself through a little bit of cat-cow motion. We're going to arch the back and flatten the back. Right in between those motions, your spine's going to feel, again, neutral. This is different for everyone. But we're going to move towards a low lunge position. Now, typically, if we're not paying attention to these cues, we get really far into a lunge and our back is in that very arched position. Not ideal. So before we do that, we're going to get real tall in the trunk, like someone's lifting you up by the crown of the head. Really tall spine. Draw your pubic bone, the front of your pelvis, just draw it up a little bit and try to activate that lower core. And you should feel your butt cheek contract. Sorry, your glute muscle. Hold all that together, and then you're going to glide forward just a couple inches. And what this should start to accomplish is a good stretch in the front of your right thigh. Back out just a little bit. Find less stretch. Reset the pelvis. Lift pubic bone. Tuck your tailbone. Draw forward enough to feel the front of your right thigh. Let's ease in and out of that stretch a couple times. Again, big cues here. Maintain that neutral spine, keeping your ribs from flaring up and out. Pretty basic stretch. I hope that y'all will be able to apply this to your yoga practice. Back to neutral. Think again, tall spine. Should be a pretty straight line from your head, shoulders, hips to knee, okay? Neutral spine, we're gonna reach both arms overhead. Watch that rib flare. This immediately should make you work on that front abdomen. You should feel like the space between your sternum and your pubic bone is closing down. We're keeping that active. Glide forward, stretch the front of your right hip again. Deep breath in, back out. Neutral shape, pull forward. Now as you do a few more reps like that, go at your own pace. You're gonna feel like your forearms might want to slip. You're gonna feel that back want to arch. You're gonna feel those ribs flare up. And we're not after a big, pretty Instagram kind of back bend here. This might be productive for certain yoga purposes, but for today's class, we're gonna focus on tall spine, fixed ribs, and a deep hip flexor stretch on that right leg. So pretty straightforward. This is really isolating the hip flexors. Bring your hands back to your hips. Let's alternate to that other side. Drop your left knee, Prop your right leg out front. See if you can find all that neutral positioning that we just spoke about. So again, not forward, we're just very vertical here. Lift up the crown of your head, tall spine. Tailbone goes down, pubic bone goes up. And right away, you might already feel enough stretch here, but we're gonna see if we can glide forward, just with arms at the hips for now. Obviously, the muscles we're on focus here is the front of your left hip. So the quadriceps is a big muscle here. Those go from your hip to your knee. Big mover, but again, these are muscles susceptible to short and tightness when we're sitting frequently. I hope this is a good posture break for your day. When you're ready, we're gonna come from that neutral position, reach the arms overhead. Now they might not go all the way. If you need to be kind of in that forward arm reach, that's okay. Whatever helps you maintain that rib control and that pubic bone lift. So activity right here in that front abdomen, right? Keep that position, glide forward, maybe an inch or two, shouldn't take much. If you feel really bendy here, A, you might have a lot of great flexibility. B, we might be slipping on that form. So especially on that forward lunge, really make sure we're pulling that pubic bone up, tucking the tailbone down. You should feel very active in this pose. No easy stretches here today. A couple breaths, and let's do this one or two more times. The other muscle I want to just bring up is our psoas, which is a deep muscle in the front of the hip. Also helps with hip flexion, but it attaches your spine, the very front of your spine, to your femur. We don't always think about the muscles in the front affecting the back, but it's a very big player with what we're dealing with here. All right, hands back to the hips. Let's go ahead and stand now. We're gonna apply what we just talked about in like a high lunge. Again, very yoga-centric here. We're gonna start with the left leg forward, right leg back. And what I don't want you to do right off the bat is make a really wide stance. Okay, so we're gonna keep the feet pretty close to each other. We're gonna soften that left knee just a bit and just kind of bring some awareness to what you're feeling already. First point of correction I'm gonna invite you towards is the way your hips are pointing. They should be really aligned in the forward position. If you feel like your hips are flaring out to the right, I want you to correct that. Drive that right hip forward. Let's find that pelvic tilt again. Lift your pubic bone, tuck your tailbone. The other cue that I like in this standing lunge, it's like you're trying to bring your legs together. Like you're trying to scissor that left leg towards the right leg. And by doing that really active stance, that's also going to put your pelvis in a good active position. So again, the point of this lunge is not to get into a deep forward bend with a really deep arch. Again, that does have benefits. We're not going to talk about that right now. Shallow step, bend into that left knee a little bit more. Let's see how far you can get until you feel that front right hip stretch. We should be there. If you're not, make sure your hips are square forward. Really lift that pubic bone. And again, bring those legs like they're trying to meet each other in the middle. It should feel like a really active stance, really active stance. Let's take stock of what our core and our abdomen is doing. Pull that sternum down towards your rib cage. Take those hands from the hips. We're going to reach them in the overhead position. You might have some difficulty getting them all the way overhead. That's okay. If you need to stop again in that forward reach, that's fine. Come back to the hips. We're going to take a deep breath in as we lift up. Same thing, arms overhead as far as it's comfortable, as long as we can keep that form correct in the lower body. Exhale down, do one more arm raise from the hips. Deep breath overhead. Let's bring the arms down to a capital T shape, arms straight out to the side. Maybe the palms just facing forward. Our legs are still very active here, pulling towards each other. We're gonna try to twist our trunk to the right, but not letting our hips move. So the hips are gonna stay super stable, pointing forward. We're gonna start to turn the trunk to the right. Might not go very far, that's okay. The point here is to create motion from a stable base. Slowly turn to the left. Stop when you feel your hips move. Come back to the middle. Deep breath in, one more time. Twist right. I like to exhale as I twist. Deep breath in and over towards that left side. I hope your legs are working. They should feel almost a little shaky at this point. Back to middle. Hands to the hips. Relax your stance. Shake it out a little bit. Mine are feeling almost a tiny bit shaky. Again, this is a very active, I wouldn't even call it a stretch, it's a position, okay? So back to the same position though, left leg forward, right leg back. We're gonna do somewhat of a hinge from this position, hinge forward. Hands are gonna be on the hips. We're gonna keep that lower, and again, we should be in a neutral spine still. If you're not sure, do a little cat-cow, find the middle. Back should be very comfortable. Try to bring those legs together, active stance. Slowly bend forward from the waist. When you do that, it should feel like your spine is still in that exact same neutral position. If you are bending at the spine and rounding, we're gonna do that a little bit improperly. So I want you to keep your chest really tall, tall chest, neutral spine. Hands are still at the hips. And let's bring the trunk right back to vertical where we started in this lunge. Deep breath in, hinge forward. We're gonna tip the trunk forward in that very stable base. Chest up, shoulder blades maybe slightly drawing together. Back up one more time. Breathe in to initiate. Exhale, hinge forward. When I say hinge, that means we're moving from the hip joint and not the spine. So spine is super stable here. Good, come back up. Neutral stance, shake it out. Again, legs should feel active here, okay? We're gonna switch it up, put that right foot in front, left foot back. Again, not a very far stance. The legs should be reasonably close together. Bend that right knee. Observe where your hips are going. They might wanna flare left. So we're gonna pull them so they're facing square ahead. Let's see if we can find that neutral pelvis. If you need to, get those hands on the front and the back and think about a little cat-cow again. Right in the middle of those, neutral spine. Pubic bone lifts. You should feel activity right away. Front abdomen. Glide forward to feel a stretch in the front of your left thigh. You might feel your left calf stretch here too. That's okay. We'll call that a secondary, kind of a bonus stretch. Gonna hang here for a second. Gonna get those legs active. Again, right leg pulls back, left leg pulls forward. Active stance. Hands by the hips. Deep breath in. We're gonna raise them up overhead, stopping before your ribs flare. Exhale, come down. Inhale, come up. We're trying to keep that chest up, but we're not dumping into the spine. We're not creating a big back bend here. So neutral spine. You're gonna get tired of me saying that by the end of this class, but I hope it sticks. Back to the hips. One more time. Deep breath in. Lift them on up. Should feel that left hip flexor at this point. Let's come down to capital T arms. Right out to the side, palms face forward. Deep breath in. We're gonna slowly twist left, very slow. Observe your pelvis and hips. They should still be facing forward. We're not trying to get a maximal twist here. Just trying to get a little trunk rotation with stable base. Slowly ease towards that right rotation. It's not gonna go very far, don't worry about it. Back to middle. Deep breath in, reset, drive those legs together, slowly turn left, and slowly turn right. Good, back to middle. Relax the arms, shake it out. Very nice. Okay, got a little bit of active stances on our feet. We're gonna get down onto our back next and talk about our pelvic tilt while we're lying face up. We could have started with this. This is a really pretty simple and digestible way to activate our pelvic tilt. Now, I talked a little bit about changing the function of our pelvis, not necessarily the structure, right? We've all got our bones, muscles, ligaments, our genetics. We're not going to be changing that. What we're changing is the function, how we use those things. And the big picture with pelvic tilt is glute strength. Okay, so we're going to work towards a bridge pose. But before we get there, we're just going to activate that good pelvic tilt while we're lying here. So think about creating space between the floor and your spine. Arching the back. This is more just an awareness point, right? This leads us towards an anterior pelvic tilt. We don't like this as much. So we're going to flatten the spine, push the lower back down against the floor. Take a breath. Repeat that a couple times. Let the belly come towards the ceiling, back arches, Maybe we exhale as we push down. Inhale, lift the spine, just for awareness. Exhale, press it down nice and flat. When you do that, I'm going to encourage you to exhale through pursed lips, like you're blowing up a balloon. When you do that, you should feel more abdominal muscles. It's activating our core, which supports the pelvis. Okay, one more time. Inhale, everything relaxes. We're moving towards an arch. Exhale, again, like you're blowing up a balloon. Flat down. Tighten up that abdomen. Good. Okay, so we're going to try to maintain. That should put us pretty much in a neutral spine. And we're going to try to maintain that as we work towards a bridge. Things that I like to do for bridge pose as well. Arms out at the side, elbows right down on the floor. You're going to push those elbows down into the floor just to activate your middle back musculature a little bit. It's going to assist our bridge. So elbows press. We're going to try to just cinch up that lower abdomen. Watch that rib flare here. Feet planted nice and firmly. We're going to lift up, maybe just a low or medium bridge first. Okay, just to try to warm up our hamstrings and our glutes. Okay, set it down. Take a breath. As you exhale, let that exhale, again, brace your core and lift. At the top of this one, really focus on contracting your butt muscles. If you haven't done this for a while, it might feel a little strange to try to get all that to turn on, but again, there's no nicer way to say it. Just clench your cheeks. Try to tighten it down there. Set it down. We're going to incrementally hold these longer and longer. If this causes lower back pain, A, we might be losing the tilt, and B, we might be raising too high. So don't forget about those elbows. Push them down. Breathe in first. As you exhale, lift up, clench the cheeks, and let's hold here for maybe another breath or two. What you should feel is glutes. Your butt should be on. And again, we're not into an arch of the lower back. Your pubic bone should be pulling towards your sternum. And that naturally should activate your core muscles here. Good, set it down. We're gonna do one more long one like that. Let everything relax here in between. Deep breath in. Exhale, flatten the back a little bit. Activate those core muscles and lift up. Last one, we're gonna hold it a little bit longer. Elbows driving down, feet flat on the floor. Squeeze those cheeks. And hold. If this is easy for you, you can challenge this a little bit. Well, maybe we'll work towards that challenge next set here, actually. We'll finish this last long isometric bridge. And set it down. Good. All right, everything's kind of relaxed. Let's just drop those knees over to the left side of the body. Just a little low back twist here, just to be nice in between. Drop the knees over to the right. Just gonna work towards a gentle low back twist each way. So I'm gonna guide us through just a little bit of a bridge challenge. If you feel challenged enough in what we just did, I'm gonna encourage you to repeat that same set. Nice long pause. If you feel like you want to challenge one side of your glutes, great for you. Again, if you have lower back pain, either lower it down, check your form, or just dial it back for some stretching if this is really uncomfortable for you. Elbows pressed down. Breath in first. Exhale, lift the hips. Squeeze the glutes. What we're going to work on is lifting that left foot. Your left foot, we're going to lift it an inch off the floor. Just keep it really close, but we're going to load the right leg here. And our goal is to maintain neutral spine and keep your pelvis from dipping to the side. So if you need to, take a peek down at your hips. They should be level, left and right. Elbows help a lot here, but you should feel that right glute super fired up. Let's lower the left foot back where we started. Again, check in with yourself. This feels like too much. Keep it at two-footed bridge. Deep breath in first. Exhale, brace. Lift that right leg just an inch off the floor. Stabilize your pelvis. Don't let that hip drop to the side. Hold, hold, hold. Good, right foot down. Hips come down. Take a breath. Okay, I got one more. I love bridge progressions. These are my favorites. So let's find the top of your bridge one more time. Elbows, brace. Breath in to start. Exhale, brace the core, lift the hips. If that one felt reasonable for you, this should feel slightly more challenging. We're just going to straighten the left knee. When you do that, your thighs should be parallel. They should be on the exact same plane here. If you're really dipped to the side, let's just park that left foot back on the floor, work on the two-footed stability for now. We're going to hold those hips nice and level. You should feel that right glute talking to you now. Elbows helping a lot on this one. And again, pubic bone pulling towards the sternum. Don't forget that cue. That should activate that lower abdomen. Park that left foot. Take a breath. As you exhale, straighten that right leg. Take a peek at your thighs. They should still be level. Try and hold. Good. Park that right foot. Set it down. Very nice. So that is my very picky, very anatomical bridge. Takeaways from this: glute activation, neutral spine, also not lifting too high. The higher you go in a bridge, the more we get into that arch, which is not productive, at least for this conversation. All right, we're going to change our shape now. We're going to be in a hands and knees position, also called quadruped, meaning on all fours. And I'm going to use a yoga block here just to demonstrate this next little phase. At this point, neutral spine should be a pretty comfortable topic for you all. We're going to find hands and knees, add a bolster, add a blanket, add a fold in your mat if any of your extremities feel uncomfortable with this. For me, I'm going to use fists instead of wrists. Okay, so do whatever makes you feel comfortable. Check your alignment here. Hands should be right under the shoulders. Knees should be right under the hips. Okay, nice stable tabletop. Simple. Let's start with cat-cow, right? Lift the spine towards the ceiling. I'm going to drop the head a little bit. This is flexion of the spine. This should feel like a nice stretch. Also, posterior pelvic tilt for those of you paying attention there. We're going to go the opposite way. Drop the belly towards the floor. We're going to arch the back within reason. Stop where you need to. We're looking forward slightly on this one. So this is mostly about spinal mobility. This is a great morning stretch, especially if you have any kinks in the back from waking up weird positions. Take a breath as you move through each shape a couple times. The lumbar spine is very permissible to this range of motion, meaning the way the joints are designed, it allows us to bend forward and back very readily. The upper back, a little bit less of this motion happens there just because we have so many rib joints involved. But this is a good way to grease the hinges, maintain spinal mobility. Okay, right in the middle of those shapes, already after what we've done, you should feel like neutral spine is pretty easy to find. Okay, if you're not sure, slide a hand back there. Your back should be relatively flat. Again, everyone's different. But right in the middle of those ranges, I'm going to place a yoga block here at the base of my spine. That's going to be my feedback tool. If you have one, feel free to throw it back there. You can play along. That's going to be my reminder that if I arch too much, you're going to feel that block move. It may tip off your spine, but that's going to give me that reminder to keep my spine super stable. First thing we're going to do is take a deep breath in. As you exhale, through the exhale, we're going to straighten that left leg behind us. And just keep the toes on the floor. We're just going to do a little toe slider out behind us. So it's like a little kickstand back there. This should be relatively straightforward motion. You shouldn't feel your pelvis move much during this. We're going to take a breath in as you come back to where we started. Left knee parks. Exhale, next breath, straighten right leg. Just slide those toes out behind you. Just slow motion. And I want your awareness to be at your lower abdomen and your spine. They should be really glued in at this point. Same thing, left sides, same motion. Leg goes out, toes on the floor. Lower back should be really stable. If you don't have a yoga block, try to imagine you're balancing a cup of water back there. Nice and steady. Don't want to let it spill. Okay, next step. Deep breath. Exhale, reach the left leg behind. Toes still on the floor. We're going to raise the right arm in front of the body. We're going to try to get it to a parallel shape of the floor, meaning my arm is, again, pretty parallel to the floor. If you do that, monitor your ribs. We might want to get into that arched position. So we're going to really demand a lot from that lower abdomen. Think like you're pulling your pubic bone towards your sternum. We practiced this already, watching a rib flare. Bring those limbs back to where we started. Deep breath in. Exhale, right leg goes back, left arm in the forward direction, parallel to the floor, right toes still on the floor. Monitor ribs, maybe give that little abdominal cinch. Back in, one more time each side. Breath first. Exhale, reach, left leg back, right arm forward. You should feel activity in your stomach. If this feels easy, we may need to reassess our muscle activity. Back down, last one on the left arm, right leg. Make them long, low back still super steady. Good, we got that extremity motion dialed in. We're gonna progress that a little bit, really making sure to keep that low back stable. Let's bring that left leg back again, kickstand, toes on the floor, right arm overhead. Let's slowly lift and hover that left leg up. Maybe we can get it to where it's parallel to the floor, but that's gonna really make sure, or really demand a lot from your low back. Lifting these limbs together might mean we just arch the back, and that's definitely, well, we'll call it a yellow flag for now. So with those limbs extended, find your balance. And again, think pubic bone towards sternum. Activate that lower abdomen. That might mean your limbs come closer to the floor. That's okay. Whatever helps you maintain neutral spine. Hold here for another breath. Should feel very active. Good, both limbs down. Take a break. Make sure we're still neutral spine. If you do a little cat-cow in between, that's okay. Find flat. Right leg behind us, toes on the floor, left arm overhead. Slowly, and maybe with your exhale, hover that right leg up. Hard to tell what your spine is doing sometimes. That's where the block really comes in. When you get those limbs lifted, again, the cue here, pubic bone towards sternum. Give that little cinch to the lower abdomen. If that lowers your leg a little bit, that's okay. Hold and breathe and set it down. One more time each side without all those directions, okay? I'll let you go at your own pace. Try to keep all that dialed in though. Left leg, right arm, extend. Get that little auto correction. Tuck the pubic bone, or lift the pubic bone. Bring those limbs down. And exhale, other side. Left arm, right leg. Try to squeeze that right glute as you do this. Good, set it down. All four limbs down. If you're using a yoga block, just set it to the side. Now another medium advanced exercise would be into a plank. I'm not gonna coach us on a full length plank. What I'm gonna have us do is actually a knee length plank. That's hard to say quickly. What I'm gonna have you do is get your forearms on the floor. Going from that tabletop position, we're gonna just dive onto those forearms. Knees are gonna scoot back a little bit. We're gonna, from this position, try to find that posterior pelvic tilt. Again, your cues here are contracting your butt muscles. This should already put you in a very active position. Pubic bone coming towards sternum. We're gonna hold this. If this feels easy, you can move towards full plank, but we're gonna really try not to let that lower back arch. So from the knee plank, this should feel challenging. If it doesn't, you can even creep your arms a little further in front of you. That really demands that we pay attention to that lower back. Let's lower all the way down onto our stomachs. Just take a moment here, forehead on the hands, everything kind of relaxed. Just another position, just to really dial in this message today, guys. Try that pelvic tilt while we're here. Contract your butt. It's almost like you're trying to create a little space there where your belt buckle would be. Let it relax. And again, tuck, squeeze, pubic bone towards sternum. Let it relax. And one more time. Tuck, hold, maybe take a breath there. Let's come back to short plank. We'll get the forearms on the floor in front of us. And bring the knees at a reasonable distance. Not too worried about the length here, but definitely the function of this shape. So when you're there, try to, it's almost like you're going towards a cat pose, right? Pull pubic bone up, clench your cheeks, and hold. If you feel adventurous and comfortable, you can try that full plank from the forearms. Protective mechanism here is those glutes. If your glutes are not firing, your low back's gonna do all this work, and that's a recipe for some lower back discomfort. Okay, set it down. I'm gonna lower my trunk all the way down to the floor. We're gonna do a third plank here in just a moment. Just let you breathe and relax in between. When you're ready, I'll have you do the plank of your choosing. I'm going to stick with short plank. It feels like I can activate enough here. Maybe just creep my knees a little further away from my elbows. And again, we'll tuck the pelvis and we're going to hold. Feel that lower abdomen shaking at this point. Hold, hold, hold. Good, and set it down. I'm gonna bring you back up to hands and knees position. There's just one more thing I wanna do with you while we're here. Another favorite spinal mobility exercise. Not quite as important to keep a neutral spine here, because what we're gonna do is a little rotation. Take that left hand, reach it underneath you. I'm gonna try to reach that left hand to the right as far as is comfortable. This might stretch your left shoulder, should stretch your lower back a little bit. Deep breath in, unwind, left hand goes towards ceiling. And we'll breathe in as we sweep down. Repeat that same thing, just a good deep thoracic twist here. We'll do about 3 of these on each side. And back up. Last little reach towards the ceiling. We'll park that left hand under the shoulder. Right hand is our moving arm. We're gonna reach that to the left, under the abdomen. Reach long, just kind of see where that range lies today for you. Deep breath in to untwist, towards the ceiling, and right back down. 2 more like that. Inhale, lift, and exhale down. Good. Again, takeaways from today's class: a little cat-cow, a little thoracic twist, great morning mobility stretch. From there, I'm just going to hammer home one last point with you: standing posture. So why don't we come up and just revisit simple cues for you to maintain a pelvic tilt while we're standing. The sitting one, again, you're just going to get tall in your seat, contract your butt. It's pretty much the same thing we're doing while we're standing. I want you to draw attention to the width of your legs, though. Put them about shoulder width right now. Hand on the front and the back of the pelvis. Let's just kind of find that posterior pelvic tuck. Tailbone down, pubic bone up. Squeeze your cheeks, right? Glutes are active. And then I also want you to think about trying to separate your feet without moving them. Try to push your legs apart from one another. That gets your outer hips involved. This should, again, feel like a very active stance. If you're doing it right, you might even feel your toes lift and your arches activate there in your feet. So it should feel like a very kind of powerful, active pose. And again, our pubic bone is coming up. No one stands like this all day, I get it. Let's say you work from home though. This is a great thing to do, very low tech, very easy and digestible. Stand up from your desk, do this for 30 seconds, once in the AM, once in the PM. It's a good way to get that gluteal activation online. Maybe spend a moment giving those hip flexors a little attention. All right, guys, I think that's probably good for today. I hope you come away with a couple exercises to use, at least a little bit of awareness on what you can do just to maintain a good, healthy pelvic position. And again, I just want to reiterate the point. It's not about the structure. Everyone is a little different. Everyone's got variation. What can be changed, what we can make improvements on, is the function of those pieces, how they move, what we do when we exercise, when we do yard work, when we sit, when we stand. If you need more help with these topics, I work as a chiropractor here in Salem, Crux Chiropractic. I'd be happy to help you with any of that. If not, keep active in yoga, keep active in whatever keeps you moving, and stay tuned for more classes in the future. Thanks for joining me. Have a great rest of your day.